Welcome to Yeukai Business Show, UK's premier business show where we feature business thought leaders, high achievers, and industry experts. Today's episode is brought to you by World Outsourcing Solutions Limited, a company that specializes in helping executive business owners with virtual assistant services and business growth systems. Here's your host, Yeukai Kachidori.
Hello, it's Yeukai Kajidori here, and on behalf of my business partner, Trevor Stockwell, and the amazing team here at World Outsourcing Solutions, I want to welcome you to this special episode of Enlightened Entrepreneur. You can find us at worldoutsourcingsolutions.com, where we specialize in providing business owners from all walks of life with highly trained, highly skilled virtual assistants. We are the go-to center of all your outsourcing needs based here in the United Kingdom. Hello and welcome. Today is a very special day indeed. I have a special guest with me here, Andrei Mincov. I think I pronounced that right.
No, you didn't. It's Mincov.
Yes, Andrei Mincov. Hey, Andrei, welcome to the call.
Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Now, Andrei's career, 20-year career as an intellectual property lawyer began when his father, a well-known Russian composer, caught a radio station stealing his music. At the pinnacle of his Russian career, Andrei moved to Canada, where he founded Trademark Factory, the only firm in the world that offers guaranteed flat-fee trademark marking services. He is a best-selling author of 5 books, an international speaker, a visionary, and is passionate about helping entrepreneurs protect their ideas and cover their assets. It's a really great pleasure and honor to have you on the call, Andrei.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Awesome. Now, to get us started, would you talk us through, your move from Russia to Canada and how you got started in this magnificent project you have right now?
Well, it's a long story, but I'll try to make it short. So I was, as you said, a lawyer in Russia for many years, for 13 years, and I started with my dad. And at that time, when I decided to make the move, I was employed by the largest international law firm in the world, Baker McKenzie, where I did some intellectual property work for the biggest clients on the planet, and like Apple, Microsoft, DreamWorks, J.K. Rowling, and many, many, many others. I did go on a short vacation with my wife to Prague, Czech Republic, and we quickly saw how Czech Republic changed from being a socialist nightmare into a normal, livable capitalist country, and we realized that Russia wasn't there and wasn't even going the same direction. So we decided that was the time for us to try something else. And so by doing the research, we realized that Canada would be the easiest place for us to move, where I could continue doing what I love to do best, which is intellectual property law. And so we moved to Canada 8.5 years ago. Yep.
Incredible. And you've got an interesting story, because when you got there, things didn't actually turn out as you hoped it was. You end up having to go back to law school. Would you share your thoughts about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, that was one of the biggest surprises for me, that I have to go back to law school. I didn't know that. Really, I found out about it from the managing partner of the law firm that I was working with in Russia. She was a Canadian, and she told me, "Andrei, do you know that you'll have to go back to law school?" I said, "No, I don't." And she says, "Well, you might check it out." And I thought it was a joke, right? Because I was a lawyer with 13 years experience with a PhD in law in Russia, and I thought, it shouldn't be that difficult. But she was right. I had to spend 3 more years going through law school again. I did my law school, finished top of the class in half the courses and top 10 in the remaining ones. Yet, I still couldn't find any law firm in Canada that would offer me a job. And so that
was a rude awakening.
that was really to me, that was the best evidence that Karl Marx was an idiot, because if you remember, he had this idea that labor has inherent value, right? Yes. And here I was, just moved from a situation when I was a top 5 intellectual property lawyer in Russia to nobody in Canada. Not just nobody, but nobody who couldn't find anybody who would entrust them with, reviewing a $500 contract. So that was probably one of the most frustrating years of my life. But this led to something that turned into the most exciting years of my life, because this is how I started my law firm. That was my first entrepreneurial venture, and really very quickly after I started the firm, I realized that my success had nothing to do with my skills as a lawyer, had nothing to do with how good I was in protecting other people's intellectual property. It had everything to do with how good I was as a marketer, how good I was as a sales guy, how good I was as an entrepreneur. And to be honest with you, when I was starting the firm, I thought that I was not good at those things at all. And it gradually, I was doing less and less, lawyering, and more of what it takes to build a successful business. And this was very interesting journey for me.
Incredible. And you mentioned earlier on in our discussion that you were introduced to Robert Kiyosaki's book, which sort of like moved you closer to where you are right now. Maybe you could share more with our listeners about that.
Absolutely. So now it's my daily habit. I spend at least an hour in the evening just sitting in a bathtub and reading some self-development book. And the whole thing started with Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I picked up the book, I was reading it, and as I was reading it, I realized that he wrote the book about me, because his idea that the employment income is the most insecure type of income, there I was sitting in my bathtub, with no job, with no job interviews lined up.
Highly qualified at the same time.
Oh, yeah. And I'm like, if anything, I got more qualified after I got my second lawyer license, the Russian license and the Canadian license, but yet nobody wanted to hire me. And I'm like, this actually proves the point that you can go from being a, well sought after specialist to somebody that nobody wants to hire. And
yes, because actually I remember this point. You mentioned earlier on that back in Russia, you were not far off in having a deal where you were going to partner with one of the world's largest law firm.
Yeah, I was a few months away from getting an offer to become a partner with Baker McKenzie, right? The largest firm where I helped all those big clients. And I said no to that because I wanted to move to a country that respects freedom, that respects entrepreneurship, and that respects intellectual property, or so I thought. and eventually, so after reading his book, it really gave me the courage to start my own firm, because I thought, you know what, if I can't start my own practice and make enough money to survive, it means that my assumptions that I'm good enough to be a lawyer in Canada were completely incorrect. And so I, launched the firm, and very quickly realized what the direction should be in terms of how do I show the value proposition to the potential clients of what they can get through me that they wouldn't be getting otherwise. And that's how the whole thing started.
Incredible. Because there's such a huge shift there. Maybe you're talking to somebody who's getting started. What would you say to them at this point?
Really, there is no way you're going to succeed unless you make a ton of mistakes. And if you sit on your ass and do nothing, it's not going to get you any closer to the results that you're looking for. So if there's one piece of advice I could give is just don't be afraid and go for it, and make as many mistakes as humanly possible, but learn from those mistakes. And the other thing I would suggest is probably something I would suggest to myself back then is go and talk to a bunch of people and ask them a bunch of questions and seek advice. We all think that we are so smart that we should be able to do it on our own. And we probably are, and we probably will. It's just going to take us an eternity to get there.
Yes.
And, the books and the seminars are great. And I've read a ton of books. I've watched a ton of webinars. I've attended a ton of seminars. But nothing beats being able to have somebody, a mentor, who you can go to and ask a question and then try to implement what they're telling. Because if we keep doing things the way we're always doing them, we're going to end up with results we're always getting. And if we want a different result, we should try new things.
Absolutely. Thank you. And let's go back to the time you read the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. What were your initial steps that you took to get you started? You now know what you need to do. Being employed was not really an option for you. You had to make something happen. What did you do after that?
So the first thing I did was I tried to figure out, do I set up a corporation or do I start as just an individual? And I started getting bounced off by, an accountant would tell me, oh, you need to talk to a tax planner. A tax planner would tell me, oh, no, you have to talk to a tax lawyer. A tax lawyer said, no, you have to talk to a financial planner. A financial planner would tell me you have to talk to a bookkeeper, and bookkeeper will tell me I have to talk to an accountant. I said, you know what? This really is not going anywhere. So
Yes.
I did, what I could. I just read up a bunch of stuff online and realized that I didn't want to. So what I wanted to do at that point is to minimize the taxes I'd pay for on the personal side, and the pension system and all of that stuff, which I don't think is going to last by till the time when I'm old enough to get the benefit of it. So the very first thing I did, I set up a company before I made a dime. And that was really what started pushing me in the direction of, I'm not just a practitioner of law, I am a business owner.
Yes.
And I started doing this started transitioning to that side very quickly, because here I was. So the second thing I did was I scripted my own website. So I was a programmer as a hobby, right? And I've always loved programming because, unlike law, with when you code, there's this instant gratification after you've finished writing the script, right?
Yeah, because you can see it working.
Yeah, it like you've spent the whole night, you stayed up all night, you're coding away, and then you press enter and it works.
Yes.
And you never get that with law, right? You can write a contract to a client, and you can spend a week writing a contract, and you give it to the client, but you really never know if it's a good contract or not, because in 99.9% of the cases, it never gets tested in the court. So you tell yourself it's a great contract. The client tells yourself it's a great contract, and they pay the bill. But really, you don't get that sense of, oh, it works. So I wrote my own website, and as I was doing it, I realized I had to make it different from what everybody else has, because I didn't want to become that lawyer that everybody despises, right? So I didn't want to become a lawyer that feels that they're kind of a gatekeeper to some sacred knowledge, right? I wanted to make intellectual property law something that normal people can understand, that they can use to protect themselves. And this is really how I started on the journey of writing a lot of content. This is how all of my books got published, all with a view of, how do I make it easy for entrepreneurs around the world to use my services to protect their IP? How do I make it easy for them to understand what intellectual property even means? What can it do for their business or to their business?
Right. Right, incredible. I like what you said right there in the beginning, that you registered a company straight away when you had this, light bulb moment, and you took it upon yourself that you put stake in the ground, so to speak. You had the ball rolling. And I think entrepreneurs and the people who are getting started need to hear that and need to take some sort of an action, because one action leads to another and leads to another. And you mentioned something very important there, that you started the transition process from being an employee, so to speak, to a business owner.
Yeah. So there's actually two things that I wanted to cover with what you just said. So the first thing about just starting with building the right foundation. Here's the example I always use for trademarks, because trademarks at this point is the only thing that we do. So. Right. The best example for trademarking, because when I get asked, when should I register my trademark? Should I wait till we get big? Or the example I always use is Coca-Cola, right? There's multi-billion-dollar brand. These guys filed their first trademark application in 1892. That was the year when they just incorporated. But most importantly, this was the year when they were selling 9 drinks a day. Right. So I call it a lemonade stand with a dream. These guys, these guys knew that if they were to become successful with what they started, the brand would be the most important value of it, the most valuable asset. And that's why they went out and did the right thing. They trademarked it. Right. And when I talk to an entrepreneur and they're like, oh, you know what? I'm not sure. I've been at this for, a couple of years. We're still trying to figure it out. Do I need a brand or not? Like, dude, you should, if you don't believe in what you do, you should get yourself something else. Right. Why are you spending all this time of your life trying to build something and you're not protecting what can become the most valuable asset? This is crazy. So that's the first thing. And the second thing, speaking of transitions, so there were really several transitions in my life recently. So the first one was moving from Canada, from Russia to Canada. That was a big step out of the comfort zone. The second step out of the comfort zone when I realized that I'm no longer looking to be an employed lawyer, but I'm running my own firm. Right. And the third step was last year, when I decided that I will voluntarily give up what I was working so hard to get, which was my lawyer license. So last year, I gave up my lawyer license to be able to scale my trademarking side of the business internationally, something which I wasn't allowed to do while I was still holding on to my Canadian lawyer license. And that was really scary, because after 20 years of being able to call myself a lawyer, I had to say, you know what? I am no longer a lawyer. All we do is trademarks. And in Canada has this weird licensing regime where you can trademarks without being a lawyer. You have to be a trademark agent to do trademarks. And so I, spent countless hours and read thousands of pages just trying to figure out how do we build that up so that we are, properly regarded everywhere outside of Canada, where we can still do this model that I have with Trademark Factory. And so when I finally gave that up, that pushed me even harder to stop working in the business and start working on the business, as Michael Gerber loves.
Incredible. Absolutely.
Loves to say.
We all love it.
Yep.
Yes. Incredible. Let's talk about how you got your first client. You had this change, the radical change, and you're actually going for yourself. How did you do that, bearing in mind that you had built your own website in the process?
Yeah, so that was the client came from the website, and they just found us online and they wanted to get a trademark. It was a really small Vietnamese restaurant that wanted to get their trademark. And I'm like, interesting. This works. This website that I just built, it works. People find it. And now I just got a client who was, ready to go with me. And the thing that I did with them really, I guess, was very, very, very illustrative in terms of what happened to the business after, because what I needed to do after they told me that they wanted to go with me, the first thing I needed to do was write an agreement between me and them whereby they become our client.
Yes.
And I am very algorithmical, right? Because I love coding. The way I was writing that agreement, I already knew that I needed to write an agreement in a way that I can automate this. So it had to use language that I could reuse for different situations. And I spent almost a couple of days just writing that agreement with him. And then there was another client, and there was another client, and there was another client. And at some point, I realized it's time to just sit down and write some code that would automate the agreement generation for me. I spent entire week doing nothing, no legal work, no billable work, just writing that code for the agreements. That's really how Trademark Factory website was born. And at the end of it, I'm sitting there with something that works, and I'm thinking to myself, I just spent a week of my life writing a code to automate the generation of agreements, and I don't even have clients enough to justify the time. Because even if I were to spend half an hour on each client, how many agreements would it take to pay for the time? But today, when we get requests from all over the world, today when I wake up in the morning, and when I actually get to check my email, say, oh, this guy just accepted the agreement, this guy just accepted the agreement, and I don't even have to press a button. Every single time this happens, and it happens pretty much every day, I'm so happy that I spent that week starting the automation process.
Incredible. The beautiful thing about what you do, really, Andrei, is you are prepared to put in that hard work initial before you see the result. Isn't that the experience of entrepreneur? It's like one of those old saying, you can't say to the fire, fire, give me heat, before you put the wood in. You actually have put a lot of hard work in all that. Let's look at how you are marketing your business today, especially. How do you go about doing that?
So there are a few avenues that we take. So one of them is content generation. So as you mentioned, I'm the best-selling author of 5 books. Well, 3 of them were in English, 2 of them were in Russian. So my latest venture with books is my series called From Faceless to Legendary. And what that is my third book was was called The Ultimate Insider's Guide to Intellectual Property, because it was a 360-page book on law without a single footnote. That's really my claim to fame with that book. It was written for normal people, not for lawyers.
Yes.
But it was still, I was finding that it was still intimidating to a lot of entrepreneurs. So what I decided to do is to break that down into a much smaller book. So the Faces to Legendary is about 100 pages. And from Faces to Legendary, I'm writing it with a specific industry in mind. So the first one was From Faces to Legendary, The Ultimate Insider's Guide to Intellectual Property for Restaurants. So bars, cafes, and restaurants. The second one was for coaches, mentors, trainers, and consultants. And It's pretty much the same book. Like 90% of the book of the From Faces to Legendary book is the same book as the other one. We're just using different examples. We're using slightly different strategies. But the beauty of that is all of this, 100% of the book is relevant to the owner in that particular industry, right? So they no longer have an excuse that, it's too big of a book or it's not relevant to me, because it is relevant to them, because it is about them.
They relate to it.
Yeah, so the book. We publish cartoons on trademarks. We publish educational videos. I do a lot of guest posting, and I do interviews like the one I'm doing with you right now. So that's on the content side. We also, obviously the website is the main source of client generation. We do online ads. We do trade shows. We do a lot of things, and some of them work and some of them don't, and some of them work better and some of them work not so good. But the only way to find out really is to just go out and do it. We send direct mail. We, again, some of it works better than other, but you won't know what works until you try it.
Absolutely. You have to be prepared to put in the work and, try new strategies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Let's look at your day now, Andrei. What does it look like today compared to when you were working in a law firm? How does your day look like? Well,
I'm a night owl, right? So I can't follow the advice of all those people who say, I wake up at 5 a.m. and I meditate for an hour. I have a drink of water. I don't do any of that, right? So what I do is I wake up usually around 9ish, and I have the rule that before I go to bed, I have a to-do list on my desk, and I am not allowed to check my email until at least one item from that list has been checked off. Right? It doesn't have to be the biggest or the most important one, but it has to be something, right? And once that's off that list, then I would, check the email to see what's happening, and assuming that there is nothing urgent that needs to be taken care of, I will go back to the list and start working on the biggest thing.
You have an interesting rule that you follow, which I loved. I don't do this one yet, but I would love you to explain that the rule that make at least one sales call a day. Would you expand on that and the thinking behind it?
Yeah, so that's the rule I read in Joel Spoelstra's book. I think it was Outrageous Marketing. His idea is, in order to grow a business, entrepreneurs or business owners need to reach out to potential clients or to potential referral sources. And his strategy was to make at least one sales call every day. And that's what I'm doing religiously. So even if I don't have any, prospect calls on that day, I'd call somebody I spoke to, a week ago, or I'll reach out to a law firm and say, look, you don't do trademarks. We don't do anything other than trademarks. Your clients need trademarks. Send them over to us, right? I would just pick up the phone and make those calls. And there's actually a really cool strategy that I use for something like that, for building a daily habit. Most computers allow you to set up a screensaver after certain minutes of inactivity, and with that screensaver, it allows you to put a password so that you can unlock the computer. And what I do for that purpose, so it's a different password than you use to log into your computer, but my password is I make one sales call a day. So every time I go away from the computer, I go back, I have move my mouse, it shows me the password prompt, and so I make one sales call a day. And when I type that, I'm like, did I make that call today? And if I didn't, I'd pick up the phone and make that freaking call. Right? and that really what drives me.
That is incredible. I love that. It's incredible. And obviously, it's working because you have expanded, in the US. Hope we can have enough time to talk about that. You now have expanded here in Europe as well. Can you talk to us about the process, how you went about that very briefly?
Yeah. So that was really the reason that I gave up my lawyer license last year, to be able to scale Trademark Factory internationally. And the first region that we added. So we can file trademarks directly in Canada. We can file trademarks directly in the US for Canadians. Then, because we could file trademarks in the US for Canadians, we realized that we can subcontract the work to U.S. attorney to revise what we do for non-Canadians in the U.S. And once that was taken care of, the next one was, okay, how do we add new countries? And that was Europe. And because that was obviously a region that a lot of businesses have an interest in protecting their brands in. And so we can't file in Europe directly, but we found a firm that does it really well. They don't do trademarks quite the way we do them. So we're the only firm in the world where you can get a free trademark search with an opinion, where you can get the do-it-for-you service from start to finish for a single all-inclusive flat fee. Nobody does that. And the other thing that nobody does is 100% money-back guarantee. So if during the search we tell you that we think your trademark is registrable, if because of that you make a decision to give us your money and give us the opportunity to help you protect your brand, in my opinion, if after we've tried, if we don't succeed, it's immoral for me to keep your money, right? To me, it's common sense. If I take your money, if I don't deliver, I shouldn't keep your money. Simple. But, as simple as it is, as common sense as it is, no other firm does that. So the firm that we use in Europe doesn't offer this, but because of all the proprietary systems that we build on our end, of all of our experience that we've developed here, what we do is we actually package what they offer, and we add the flat fee on top of that. We add a money-back guarantee. So we offer to our clients services pretty much of somebody else. We are the interface between them, but we offer something that they can get directly from the firm that we're using, right? And so at this point, we are still test driving this. We are, offering European Union trademarks. We are working to make sure that there are no glitches in how the software works. And once we've made sure that everything is polished, we're going to be starting to add other countries to the roster. Australian trademarks are popular. There are some other countries where the India or China where business owners want to protect their brands, and so that's really the direction that Trademark Factory is going in this year.
Incredible. Thank you so much, Andrei, for that. Now let's talk about what you know now that you wish you knew when you were started. Would you share with our listeners a bit before we wrap up our time together?
Sure. I guess.
Thank you for listening to Yeukai Business Show. We will be back to bring you more episodes with success stories and advice straight from the experts. Want more? Check out www.yukaibusinessshow.com. Get your free trial of our virtual assistant service today. Just visit www.worldoutsourcingsolutions.com. Quote WOS18 or send us an email at support@worldoutsourcingsolutions.com.